let us remember that we are not brutalized because we're Baptists. We're not brutalized because we're Methodists. We're not brutalized because we're Muslims. We're not brutalized because we're Catholics. We're brutalized because we are black people in America. Go where the Uncle Toms are, and you'll find the house Negro. Go where the Negro leaders are, and you'll find the house Negro. And despite the anti-Muslim propaganda, the followers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad constitute the fastest growing religious group in the entire Western Hemisphere. So don't you be fooled by Kennedy. Don't you be fooled by these Uncle Tom Negro preachers. When the dog attacks you, you get that dog, two-legged dog or four-legged dog.
Do you consider yourself militant?
I consider myself Malcolm.
Last year we sat in, what did we get? We crawled in, what did we get? We even marched in, and what did we get? So 1964 threatens to be a very explosive year.
A firebomb was tossed into the home of Malcolm X here in New York City early this morning.
I wanted you to know that my house was bombed.
Are you inferring then that because of this conspiracy, the attempt was made upon your life?
The attempt was made upon my life because I speak my mind and I know too much, and they know that I will speak it whether they like it or not.
I am at the Audubon Ballroom. Pandemonium is the only word that I can use to describe the scene here.
I want to kill somebody. Before the night's over, if Malcolm dies, somebody gonna die.
The killer has taunted return.
Patricia Hearst was a complete surprise.
It's but a vapor.
Was that another airplane?
Our newsroom. Son of Sam.
Everybody get out now.
The most active person in the spreading of the black Muslim movement is Elijah Muhammad's second in command, who calls himself Malcolm X. And Malcolm X is our guest today on City Desk.
How did you happen to join the Muslim movement?
I was in prison. I was a very wayward, criminal, backward, illiterate, uneducated type of person until I heard the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And he teaches us that because of the seriousness of the condition that our people now find themselves in, the only way that we can solve our problem is to unite together among ourselves, among our own kind, and try and solve our problem ourselves.
What is your real name?
Malcolm X.
Is that your legal name?
As far as I'm concerned, it's my legal name.
Have you been to court to establish that
I didn't have to go to court to be called Murphy or Jones or Smith. Excuse me for answering you this way.
That's
all right.
If
a Chinese person were to be walking around named Murphy or Jones or Johnson or Bunch or Powell, I think it would be just as improper for a black person.
Would you mind telling me what your father's last name was?
The last name of my forefathers was taken from them when they were brought to America and made slaves. And then the name of the slave master was given, which we refuse. We reject that name today.
You mean you won't even tell me what your father's supposed last name was or gifted last name was?
I never acknowledge it whatsoever.
Nine Negro students were turned away from a white high school in Little Rock, Arkansas by National Guardsmen.
I don't believe in segregation, I believe in slavery.
A group of Negro dissenters is taking to street corner step ladders, church pulpits, sports arenas, and ballroom platforms across the United States to preach a gospel of hate that would set off a federal investigation if it were preached by Southern whites. These homegrown Negro American Muslims are the most powerful of the black supremacist groups. They have their own parochial schools, like this one in Chicago, where Muslim children are taught to hate the white man. They have their own stores, supermarkets, restaurants. Their story of hatred for the white man is carried in many Negro newspapers. 4 or 5 times a year, the Muslims assemble in one of America's major cities to hear their leader, Elijah Muhammad. Every devout Muslim is eager to attend these meetings for some time between now and 1970, and at just such a rally as this, the Muslim leader has intimated that he will give the call for the destruction of the white man.
This coming destruction of the white man, will there be any bloodshed involved in this, or will it be a complete mental thing?
According to the teachings of the prophets of old and of God himself, there will be plenty of bloodshed.
Here comes their spiritual leader, Elijah Muhammad. He's actually Elijah Poole of Hawkinsville, Georgia.
The Christian religion has failed you. You want freedom, you want equality, but get none.
What about you, brother? How do you feel about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad?
Elijah Muhammad is trying to teach all our original people they are in bad shape.
Yeah, go ahead, brother.
Honorable Elijah Muhammad trying to wake them up.
You think he'll do it?
Yes, sir.
He's the only man with a program, right?
Yes, sir.
I've listened to the Elijah Muhammad movement and the Black Nationalist movement, and I have heard the NAACP. And I don't feel that the NAACP's views are the way out. I think that together, with our own people, more can be accomplished, rather than with the white man involved in it also, because as it is, we've already been accepting too many crumbs from this man, and we've never really gotten a real loaf of bread from him.
Minister Malcolm X.
In the church, we used to sing the song, "Good news, the chariot is coming." While you sit here today, knowing that you have come to hear good news, you must realize in advance what's good news for you might be bad news for somebody else. What's good news for the sheep might be bad news to the wolf.
Minister Malcolm X, the Muslims' New York leader and ambassador at large for the movement. He is a remarkable man, a man who, by his own admission, was once a procurer and dope peddler. He served time for robbery in the Michigan and Massachusetts state penitentiaries. But now he's a changed man. He will not smoke or drink. He will not even eat in a restaurant that houses a tavern. He told Newsbeat that his life changed for him when the Muslim faith taught him no longer to be ashamed of being a black man.
They're passing the basket through the crowd, and I think everybody standing here should put $1 in that basket. Don't you think you should? Sure, these are freedom dollars, brother. We're not asking you to give us some money to make us rich. We put up businesses. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad has set up more businesses than any black man in America. He's not trying to build churches, he's trying to build businesses. Because businesses make jobs for you And churches don't make jobs for anybody but preaching.
Mr. Malcolm, what do you think of Martin Luther King?
I think that any black man who teaches black people to turn the other cheek and suffer peacefully after they've been turning the cheek and suffering peacefully for 400 years in a land of bondage under the most cruel, inhuman, and wicked slave master that any people have ever been under, he is doing those people an injustice, and he's a traitor to his own people.
Some years ago, when I first studied the Gandhian philosophy and the method of nonviolent resistance, I came to the conclusion that it was the most potent weapon available to oppress people in their struggle for freedom and human dignity.
If it were possible for them to get a fair trial, there would be no necessity for a trial at all. These are the victims of police bullets. And you don't take the victim in court as a criminal. You take the one who shot the victim in court. And it is the police who should be on trial here in Los Angeles.
"75 police came over to kill all that they could of my followers in March number 27. We know that we're going to lose a few, but we know that God's going to kill all of you.
In order for you and me to devise some kind of method or strategy to offset some of the events or repetition of the events that have taken place here in Los Angeles recently, we have to go to the root. We have to go to the cause. Dealing with the condition itself is not enough, and it is because of our effort toward getting straight to the root that people oftentimes think we're dealing in hate. We are oppressed. We are exploited. We are downtrodden. We are denied not only civil rights, but even human rights. So the only way we're going to get some of this oppression and exploitation away from us or aside from us is come together against the common enemy. Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? So much so that you don't want to be around each other. No, before you come asking Mr. Muhammad, does he teach hate, you should ask yourself, who taught you to hate being what God gave you? And I, for one, as a Muslim, believe that the white man is intelligent enough. If he were made to realize how black people really feel and how fed up we are without that old compromise and sweet talk. Stop sweet talking him. Tell him how you feel. Tell him what kind of hell you've been catching, and let him know that if he's not ready to clean his house up, if he's not ready to clean his house up, he shouldn't have a house. It should catch on fire and burn down.
Being on the Ole Miss campus this weekend is something like being in the eye of a hurricane. You know you're in the midst of trouble, but there's a quietness and serenity here that tries to mislead you.
Americans are free and sure to disagree with the law, but not to disobey it. For in a government of laws and not of men, no man, however prominent or powerful, is entitled to defy a court of law.
James H. Meredith, son of a cotton farmer, grandson of a slave, and applicant for admission to the University of Mississippi.
James, why do you want to enter the University of Mississippi?
Well, I think that every citizen should have an opportunity to receive an education in his own state.
What is your organization's position of what happened in Mississippi, such as the James Meredith incident and the enrollment of him in the university?
Well, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad wants justice for every one of the 20 million so-called Negroes, and to just take one Negro and stick him in college, in my opinion, sir, it's only hypocrisy to pretend that they are for justice by pushing one Negro in and blowing it up all over the world to make it look like they're solving the problem when millions of black people in that state are still going to segregated schools and getting an inferior education.
Malcolm X, one of the most articulate exponents of the black Muslim philosophy, has said of your movement and your philosophy that it plays into the hands of the white oppressors, that they are happy to hear you talk about love for the oppressor because this disarms the Negro.
Now, this is what I tried to teach in the struggle in the South, that we are not engaged in a struggle that means we sit down and do nothing. That there's a great deal of difference between non-resistance to evil and non-violent resistance.
Reverend Martin Luther King preaches a doctrine of non-violent insistence upon the rights of the American Negro. What is your attitude toward this philosophy?
The white man pays Reverend Martin Luther King, subsidizes Reverend Martin Luther King, so that Reverend Martin Luther King can continue to teach the Negroes to be defenseless. That's what you mean by nonviolent. Be defenseless. Be defenseless in the face of one of the most cruel beasts that has ever taken the people into captivity. That's this the American white man.
Martin Luther King flew back into Birmingham last night after having informed a Memphis audience there would be major demonstrations in the Steel City. He has called Birmingham the last bastion of segregation in the South, promises a long, hot summer for Alabama.
In Los Angeles, California last year, the police shot Ronald Stokes through the heart. Although we are not integrationists, and we believe that you're a fool to try and mix with someone who doesn't love you, that doesn't mean that we in any way condone what those crackers are doing in Birmingham, Alabama. Our people should know better, that whenever you try and force yourself upon someone that vicious, he's going to go to extreme to show you that he's actually the dog that he is. Because it's the two-legged dog that controls the four-legged dog. And it is no accident that as long as the dogs were biting Negro women, Negro babies, and Negro children, Kennedy said nothing. It was only after the Negroes began to strike back. It was then that Kennedy called in the army. So don't you be fooled by Kennedy. Don't you be fooled by these Uncle Tom Negro preachers. When the dog attacks you, you get that dog, two-legged dog, or four-legged dog.
Good evening, my fellow citizens. This nation was founded by men of many nations and backgrounds. It was founded on the principle that all men are created equal. But are we to say to the world, and much more importantly, to each other, that this is a land of the free, except for the Negroes? That we have no second-class citizens, except Negroes? Today we are committed to a worldwide struggle to promote and protect the rights of all who wish to be free.
First reaction from the generally recognized Negro leadership, Martin Luther King.
I feel that it was a masterpiece. I think that the president spoke passionately to the moral issues in the integration struggle, and I think he made it very clear that the government, the administration, will now engage in vigorous, forthright action to bring about the realization of the American dream.
The man didn't say anything until he found out that black people in this country were ready to explode. And as soon as he saw that the explosion then was a threat to the white society, he came up with this mealy-mouthed speech. You will never get real freedom and recognition between black and white people in this country without rewriting the entire Constitution. It'll be a complete destruction of everything that America supposedly stands for.
The long-awaited March for Jobs and Freedom on Washington, D.C. has started. About 10 minutes ago, the march began, headed off down Constitution Avenue, headed toward the Lincoln Memorial, which is where we're seated now. Here at the Lincoln Memorial, the sight is almost something no Washingtonian has beheld before. As you look down the reflecting pool, you can see on the south side of the pool a solid phalanx of marchers.
The march was controlled by the president. The government told the marchers what signs to carry, what songs to sing, what speeches they could make and what speeches they could not make. The original black militants had planned to march on the White House, on the Senate, on the Congress, but the shrewd politicians in Washington, D.C., realizing that these black militants could not be stopped, joined them. And thereby, these white liberals were able to lead them away from the White House, away from the Capitol, away from the Senate, and away from the Congress, and away from victory.
All right, just pass them back. All right, I'll start on this side.
The government told the marchers on Washington what time to arrive in Washington, where to arrive, and when to arrive. Then the government channeled them from the arrival point to the feet of a dead president named Washington and let them march from there to the feet of another dead president named Lincoln. Who ever heard of a nonviolent revolution? Who ever heard of a peaceful revolution? Who ever heard of revolutionaries standing up like chumps with locked arms singing, "We shall overcome"?
It's just like when you got some coffee that's too black, which means it's too strong. What you do, you integrate it with cream. You make it weak. If you pour too much cream in, you won't even know you ever had coffee. It used to be hot, it becomes cool. It used to be strong, it becomes weak. It used to wake you up, now it'll put you to sleep.
It is the devil who leads you toward evil. Who makes the whiskey that you get drunk with? Who makes the cards that you gamble with? Who brings the dope into this country that you become addicted to? Who has created the slum and the ghetto that you're living in?
nothing but a devil.
Mr. X, how long has Cassius been a black Muslim? Do you know that?
Well, I don't know. Cassius is probably more capable of speaking for himself than any other man in this country.
I am the greatest.
We're not disputing that, Cassius, but how does Sonny Liston feel about it?
He can't feel but one way, and that's take everything I say and like it. Because February the 25th, I'm going to take back my job. I'm the champ. He's no champ. He's a tramp.
I'm real thankful of my brother, Malcolm. Yes, sir. Shabazz here. Why, this is a real disciple. You will have to kill this one to make it work.
A Negro church near the downtown area was bombed at 10:30 this morning while Sunday school classes were in session. 4 young girls were killed.
Because nothing in our book, the Quran, teaches us to suffer peacefully. Our religion teaches us to be intelligent, be peaceful, be courteous, obey the law, respect everyone. But if someone puts his hand on you, send him to the cemetery. Look at the American Revolution in 1776. That revolution was for what? For land. The landless against the landlord. How did they bring it about? Bloodshed. You haven't got a revolution that doesn't involve bloodshed. And you're afraid to bleed. As long as the white man sent you to Korea, you bled. He sent you to Germany, you bled. But when it comes time to seeing your own churches being bombed and little black girls murdered, you haven't got no blood.
Very often you'll find a zipper hidden in the arm.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You'll excuse the fact that I'm out of breath, but about 10 or 15 minutes ago, a tragic thing, from all indications at this point, has happened in the city of Dallas.
We all was shocked at the hearing of this tragic end of our president. We all were so shocked over the president, we just suspended all public speaking this year.
Malcolm X, second in command of the Black Muslim movement, expressed joy at the assassination of President Kennedy at a Manhattan rally last Sunday. Malcolm said that the killing of the president was an instance of the chickens coming home to roost. In Chicago today, Elijah Muhammad, the leader of the anti-white Muslim movement, suspended Malcolm X and disavowed his statement.
Malcolm X, you were involved in a controversy some months ago with your leader.
Well, I've been silent for the past 90 days because of some statements I made concerning the President of the United States, which were distorted.
They were distorted?
And yes.
What did you say, Malcolm?
Well, I said the same thing that everybody says, that his assassination was the result of the climate of hate. But only I said the chickens came home to roost, and which means the same thing.
You feel that we're making progress in this?
No. If you stick a knife in my back 9 inches and pull it out 6 inches, there's no progress. If you pull it all the way out, that's not progress. The progress is healing the wound that the blow made. And they haven't even begun to pull a knife out, much less try and heal the wound. They won't even admit the knife is there.
When the bell rang for the 7th round, Liston remained motionless on his corner stool.
What do you think of Cassius' victory in Miami?
I think it was a great victory. He proved he was the best man.
Where were you during the fight?
I was in the auditorium watching the fight.
Right at ringside?
Right at ringside. I was in seat 7.
The enemy wanted him to come out all blasted. They had said that he would, Liston would tear up that pretty face of yours. But Allah and myself said no.
Cassius has been following the religion of Islam, Muslim religion, for the past 4 or 5 years. And he's always been the most likable, friendly person in the world. And I think you'll find that all Muslims who follow the Honorable Elijah Muhammad have the ability to make friends with everyone.
You feel your affiliation with the Muslim religion, being a follower of the Muslim religion, had something to do with your winning the championship?
Well, I would say so. My religion is the only thing that I can give me credit for pulling me through, because 99 out of 100 seem to see no possibility of me winning.
Why do you insist on being called Muhammad Ali now?
That's the name given to me by my leading teacher, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. That's my original name. That's a black man name. Cassius Clay was my slave name. I'm no longer a slave.
The ABC Radio Network presents Voices in the Headlines.
The Black Muslim movement and one of its chief lieutenants, the fiery Malcolm X, went their separate ways this week.
Since you decided to make the change, have you discussed it with your leader, Muhammad?
No, I did receive word from him that the 90-day suspension that I was under was not to be lifted. I frankly didn't think that I would ever be an active member of the Nation of Islam anymore.
You seem to have had a change of heart in your attitude toward Negro leaders in the civil rights movement. What position are you taking now?
Well, I think that the problem itself is so big that all of the so-called Negro leaders should try some way to forget our differences. I'm willing to forget anything that any Negro leader has ever said bad about me. And as I said earlier, I am praying that they will also be able to forget the many bad things that I've said about them.
We are African, and we happen to be in America. We're not American. We are people who formerly were Africans who were kidnapped and brought to America. Our forefathers weren't the Pilgrims. We didn't land on Plymouth Rock. The rock was landed on us. We were brought here against our will. We were not brought here to be made citizens. Now that we've become awakened to some degree and we begin to ask for those things which they say are supposedly for Americans, they look upon us with hostility and unfriendliness. So our unwanted presence, the fact that we are unwanted, is becoming magnified.
next 2 or 3 weeks, it's my intention and plan to make a tour of our African homeland. And I hope that when I come back, I'll be able to come back and let you know how our African brothers and sisters feel toward us.
Travel broadens one's scope. Anytime you do any traveling, your scope will be broadened. It doesn't mean you change, you broaden. In Mecca, during the religious Hajj, never at any time or any place can you find a wider variety of specimens from the human family together at the same time. There were black people, brown people, red people, yellow people, and white people. One thing I noticed about these, they didn't act like the white people whom I had always known. I was studying the situation and I was asking myself, well, what is the difference between these people and those whom I just left in America? Something is different. And it was their attitude. White to them didn't mean the same thing that it means in America. So I was searching to find an answer as to why, and I thought I did. The fact that they had accepted the oneness of God, as does everyone who's on that pilgrimage, had the chain reaction effect of forcing them also to accept the oneness of the human family.
A few days ago, Malcolm X completed a pilgrimage to the Middle East and Africa and said during a Chicago debate that he has had a change of heart about all whites being evil.
There are many of our people who are thinking more deeply and more broadly and are beginning to see the importance of lifting it out of the national context or out of the domestic context or beyond the jurisdiction of the United States government. And the only way this can be done is by internationalizing the problem and putting it at a level where it can be taken into the United Nations. And then all of the other independent nations on this earth can involve themselves in our struggle and support us. And the only way by which this can be done, instead of it being called civil rights in the future, we're going to have to label it a human rights struggle or the struggle for human rights.
And I had stated in a newspaper article about an effort to take my life back in January, and at that time the Muslims denied it.
Why are they threatening your life?
Well, primarily because they're afraid that I will tell the real reason that I'm out of the black Muslim movement, which I never told. I kept to myself. But the real reason is that Elijah Muhammad, the head of the movement, is the father of 8 children by 6 different teenage girls. 6 different teenage girls who were his private personal secretary. The one who first made me aware of this was Wallace Muhammad, Mr. Muhammad's son. And it was their fear that if I remained in the black Muslim movement and this came into the knowledge of his followers, that they would leave him and follow me. A plan immediately was set in motion to take me down, put me out, and the statement that I made about Kennedy was used as a pretext to take me down.
Did you get out of the... What will you take to protect yourself from this threat?
I take no steps. I have a rifle. If anybody comes to my house without a good reason, I intend to try and use it, and that's all.
There have been many of our people across the country from all walks of life who have taken it upon themselves to try and pool their ideas and to come up with some kind of solution to the problem that confronts all of our people. We want freedom by any means necessary. We want justice by any means necessary. We want equality by any means necessary. We don't feel that in 1964, living in a country that is supposedly based upon freedom and supposedly the leader of the free world, we don't think that we should have to sit around and wait for some segregationist congressmen and senators and a president from Texas in Washington, D.C. to make up their mind that our people are due now some degree of civil rights.
I think that the people in this part of the world would do well to listen to Dr. Martin Luther King and give him what he's asking for and give it to him fast before some other factions come along and try to do it another way.
A firebomb was tossed into the home of Malcolm X here in New York City early this morning. The house was heavily damaged, but Malcolm X, his wife, and 4 children were not injured.
3 Molotov cocktails tossed into the home of Malcolm X today. He's the black nationalist leader who was broken away from the black Muslims.
I wanted you to know that my house was bombed. It was bombed by the black Muslim movement upon the orders of Elijah Muhammad. Now, they had planned to do it from the front and the back so that I couldn't get out. But had that one gone through that window, it would have fallen on a 6-year-old girl, a 4-year-old girl, and a 2-year-old girl. And I'm going to tell you, if it had done it, I'd taken my rifle and gone after anybody in sight. The only thing that I regret in all of this is that 2 black groups have to fight and kill each other off. Elijah Muhammad could stop the whole thing tomorrow just by raising his hand. Really, he could. He could stop the whole thing by raising his hand. But he won't. He doesn't love black people. He doesn't even love his own followers. Proof of which they're killing each other. They killed one in the Bronx. They shot another one in the Bronx. They tried to get 6 of us Sunday morning. And the pattern has developed across the country. The man has gone insane. Absolutely out of his mind. Besides, you can't be 70 years old and surround yourself by a handful of 16, 17, 18-year-old girls and keep your right mind. Now, I am well aware of what I'm setting in motion by what I'm saying up here tonight. I'm well aware. But I have never said or done anything in my life that I wasn't prepared to suffer the consequences for.
Audubon Ballroom. Pandemonium is the only word that I can use to describe the scene here. I was sitting in the first row when Malcolm came on the stage and greeted the audience. Several persons, it happened so quickly I can't describe them, stood up and fired shots. Everybody dove for the floor. I dove myself and crawled over to the side trying to get out from the scene of the shots and crawled back along the balustrade as shots rang out all over the place as Malcolm's supporters tried to subdue those who had fired upon him. He's now laying on the stage. My agent tells me that he has been shot twice and that he is still alive, but feebly.
I saw people crawling on the floor, and so I got down too. Then when I was looking out and I saw someone look in amazement to the front, I knew they had shot my husband.
Well, could you give me your impressions? I know it's difficult for you to remember right now, but try to remember just exactly what happened.
Well, he had just got up to open up, and the 2 fellas, one was a black Muslim, and I don't know who the other one was because I didn't see him, ran and started shooting, and everybody fell to the floor. Yes, sir.
They were black?
Yes, sir. He got shot in his face and 3 times in the chest.
I was back here. I was setting up chain of command. I didn't see anything. No.
Chain of command?
That's right.
For what?
Changing posts.
Oh, I see. You were one of Malcolm's guards.
That's right.
And you didn't see what happened?
No, I didn't. I heard the shots. I ran forward. I saw Malcolm hold his side and hold his stomach and fell down.
How do you feel now?
I want to kill somebody. That's right, I want to kill somebody. Before the night's over, if Malcolm dies, somebody gonna die.
Almost immediately after the shooting, New York City police apprehended 2 suspects. One identified by police as 22-year-old Thomas Hagan.
He was caught outside the building, was shot in the thigh by one of Malcolm's bodyguards, and then beaten by anybody who could reach him with fist or foot.
Now the news. Malcolm X, militant Negro leader, is dead. The 39-year-old head of the Black Nationalist movement went down in a hail of bullets as he was about to address a group of 500 people in Harlem this afternoon.
He was a hero to me. He stood out among all black people. He showed the white man where it was at.
Why was he a hero?
He got respect. He
right.
meant something to me. That's why I'm down here.
That's right.
What's going to happen now, do you think?
What's going to happen? You're going to get hurt. Your people, my people, it's going to be a whole lot of hurt before this whole thing is over. That's what I think.
Because of
his death. Whoever did it, Muslims or whoever did it, it's going to be a whole lot of hurt.
You've said that you feel that there's an international conspiracy involved here. Do you have any specific evidence of that?
I know. What I've said is that I think it was a political killing and that there may well have been political, international implications. And I believe that the questions which are raised in connection with this murder are sufficiently important that there should be an investigation held. And it should be a federal investigation to provide some answers to these questions.
This is American justice. That's right. This is American democracy. Right. And those of you who are familiar with it know that in America, democracy is hypocrisy. Right. Now, if I'm wrong, put me in jail. But if you can't prove that a democracy is not hypocrisy, then don't put your hands on me. Democracy is hypocrisy. If democracy means freedom, why aren't our people free? If democracy means justice, why don't we have justice?
He's a saint, a god. He's my god. Yes, Malcolm X is a hero. Definitely.
I don't think violence solves any social problem. It only creates new and more complicated problems. I think it is also necessary to say that the assassination of Malcolm X was an unfortunate tragedy, and we haven't learned to disagree without being violently disagreeable.
I think for the first time in the history of the struggle here in this country, we had a molecule of hope. Hope in the sense of knowing that we had a heritage, we had roots, we had a motherland to which we could look for. I think he succeeded in calling attention to our plight.
It meant a great deal to me and my people. I'm sorry that a good man is gone. At the first I hear of it, I couldn't have cried anymore, I don't believe, if I had lost my mother.
The young generation of whites, blacks, browns, whatever else there is, you're living at a time of extremism, a time of revolution, a time when there's got to be a change. People in power have misused it, and I, for one, will join in with anyone, don't care what color you are, as long as you want to change this miserable condition that exists on this earth.
Here, at this final hour, in this quiet place, Harlem has come to bid farewell to one of its brightest hopes, extinguished now and gone from us forever. Malcolm was our manhood, our now living black manhood. This was his meaning to his people. And in honoring him, we honor the best in ourselves. What we place in the ground is no more now a man, but a seed, which after the winter of discontent will come forth again to meet us. And we shall know him then for what he was and is, a prince, our own black shining prince, who did not hesitate to die because he loved us so.